Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So for today's episode, I've decided to take a break from building homemade body armor to explore a round that I think is really cool. It's the 5.7 by 28. We got 9 different rounds today to go and see just how effective they are. But before we do that, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on what you'd like to see in a future video. All right, let's get started. Alright, so for today's video, we got 9 different rounds that we're going to be looking at. I got them kind of laid out here. I got most of the boxes. We are missing a couple of them, but I think this gives you a fairly good idea of what we got. So to start with, we're going to be looking at the 5.7 SS195 lead-free cartridge. That's this guy right here, and that is 27 grains. Next up, we got the Spear Gold Dot, and so this is a 40 grain projectile, also a hollow point. And then moving down the line, we got our Fiocchi, and that is a 40 grain as well with the Vmax bullet in it. And we got some specialty cartridges today as well. So we got our Vanguard Outfitters 34 grain Black Dragon Fang, our Vanguard Outfitters 36 grain Monumental, our FN 40 grain with also the Vmax round in it. And then moving away from all the hollow points, we got some full metal jackets here. And so we're also going to be testing out our 40 grain full metal jacket, our AAC 40 grain full metal jacket, and our Federal American Eagle full metal jacket. Let's start with some watermelons just to kind of see what sort of energy these guys have, and then we'll move into a more realistic test. To do this test, we're going to be using the Ruger 57. Now this has an almost 5-inch barrel, 4.97. I'm going to do all the tests with this guy, that way we keep everything even across the board in terms of what we're actually firing the rounds from. So let's load this up and then let's start shooting these watermelons. Alright, so let's get started with this watermelon test. We're going to go left to right. We're going to start with the 27 grain from FN and then move down the list. Let's get to it. So this is the 27 grain from FN. Here goes nothing. Okay, that looked to be pretty effective on the watermelon. Granted, they are out of season, so they're a little bit smaller than you normally see, but we'll make do with what we got. Okay, so next up is the Spear Gold Dot. Alright, that one again had quite a bit of punch to it. Up next is the Fiocchi 40 grain Vmax. That definitely seemed to get the job done too. And then next is that Black Dragon Fang from Vanguard Outfitters. And then also from Vanguard Outfitters is their hollow point. Alright, so up next is the Vmax from FN. So that one seemed a little less energetic than the Fiocchi Vmax that we did earlier. And now moving into the full metal jackets, I don't expect these to blow up the watermelons quite as much, but let's see what they do. We got the Fiocchi 40 grain full metal jacket. That seemed to do about what I'd expect for a full metal jacket, where you get a small entry hole, a little bit larger exit hole. Let's move on to the AAC 40 grain full metal jacket. That one definitely seemed to have a little bit more energy behind it. And last of all, we have the American Eagle 40 grain full metal jacket. All right, that one definitely seemed to have quite a bit of energy behind it. Yeah, let's go take a look. As you can see, we did quite a bit of damage to all these watermelons here. But now let's move on to a more realistic test. So let's get that set up and I'll walk you through it. So for a more realistic test, I have some denim that we're going to be using to cover some pork ribs. So I got 2 packs of those to kind of simulate the front of a human body. And then we got all this ballistics gel, so we can hopefully see what that wound cavity would look like for all the different 5.7 rounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure that those 2 are in that denim. And then we're going to shoot right here, and we're going to see just how devastating each one of these rounds it could be to a human body. And I feel like this is a pretty good analog to simulate that. So right behind we also have 10% ballistics gel, and then up front we have those 2 pork ribs inside the denim. Let's get to shooting it. Before we get started, make sure to leave a comment down below on what you think is going to be the most devastating round during this test. All right, now we got the FN27 Grain hollow point. Let's see what that does. Hey, so that's kind of surprising. So that 27 grain from FN didn't actually penetrate very far. It made it through our 2 packs of pork ribs no problem. But if you actually look in here, I don't know if you could zoom in, it doesn't look like that round really expanded very much, and it actually tumbled backwards. So what we're going to do next is we're going to move on to the speared gold dot and see if that does a little bit more. Next is the speared gold dot. That's a 40 grain hollow point projectile. Let's see how that does. So let's see where it went here. So we went right through our pork ribs, no problem at all. And let's see if we can see this wound channel here. So you can see it a little bit better from the side. You can see that that spear gold dot kind of veered down to the bottom, and it looks like we have it right here. That went a lot further, and that one actually mushroomed really nicely. Kind of what we'd expect from a spear gold dot. They have a good reputation for opening up. So that one definitely seemed to do a lot better than those 27 grain lead free. Now let's move on to the Fiocchi 40 grain Vmax. Okay, so I'm moving those pork ribs. That way we have a little bit more of a fresher spot to shoot. And again, we're going to be shooting this with a 40 grain Fiocchi Vmax. And here goes nothing. Okay, wow. So that one was absolutely devastating. Very similar to kind of what the spear did, except it looks like with that guy, we actually lost the jacket. I think you can kind of see it here. We lost the copper jacket, I'd say probably about 3-4 inches in, and then that lead core actually traveled the rest of the way all the way out to here. That's really interesting. That definitely dumped a lot more energy too. Okay, so I'd say so far, the Spear Gold Dot and the Fiocchi Self-Defense 40 grain Vmax are our top 2 contenders. All right, let's move on to some of our more exotic rounds. So next up, we're going to be trying the Black Dragon Fang round from Vanguard Outfitters. To do the test with this round, I just wanted to show it to you guys because I think it's really cool. So this is the 40 grain Black Dragon Fang from Vanguard Outfitters. And so this is a solid copper alloy 40 grain bullet. And so I'm very interested to see what that's going to do when we do our test up here. All right, let's shoot it. So that one smoked right through the 2 pork ribs again. And actually, see if you can see it from this side. I don't know how well you can see that. If you want to look straight down. So we have this pretty crazy wound channel running all the way through, and then that round settled right here backwards, and it looks like it stayed all together. So all that energy, all that mass transferred all the way through the target, and it left this real nasty wound channel. So it looks like it started tumbling as soon as it hit. That's very interesting. Okay, so up next we're going to move to the hollow point from Vanguard Outfitters and see what that does. Next, we got the 36 grain hollow point from Vanguard Outfitters, and let's see how that does in this test. Here we go. Holy shit. Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's very interesting. So if you actually look here on the back of the denim, it looks like as soon as it hit, that round actually started breaking apart because we got these couple petals right here. And then if you zoom in, let's see if we can clean this off a little bit. If we look at the side here, you can see 1, 2, and then on this side, I don't know how easy it is to see that, but we got 3 petals that broke off of that round right there. And then looking from the top down, that guy, the rest of the round made it all the way back here. So that's absolutely wild. So we got a couple different pieces that broke off, split, and then that main portion of the round actually traveled all the way back here, which say is just about a foot into the ballistics gelatin. That's absolutely wild. I don't know how we're going to follow up that performance, but we got the FN with the 40 grain Vmax round next. And let's see if that delivers similar performance to the Fiocchi. I know they're using roughly the same bullet, but I'm curious what their loading is actually like to see if they perform similarly in our ballistics gelatin. Here we go with the FN 40 grain. Wow, so that started losing a lot of energy right up front in this port rib. And we can see we got the ballistic tip that stopped right here. And then we actually separated our jacket and our lead, very similar to the Fiocchi. However, what we can see here is we have a really large wound channel up front, and those 2 pieces stopped not quite as far back, so we didn't get quite the penetration that we did out of the Fiocchi. So we actually have our lead and our copper jacket right here in about 5 inches of ballistics gel. So that's a really interesting result. Okay, so now we got the full metal jackets up next. Let's see how those do. We got the Fiocchi full metal jacket up next. I expect it to have a lot more penetration and not open up and expand as much, because being a full metal jacket, it should retain its energy much further into the target. But let's see how it does. All right, I'm going into this upper right hand corner in 3, 2, 1. So that one definitely had a lot more just punch through. So you can see we had a little bit of tumbling. We had it tumble a little bit right at the front, tracked along the side, and then exited out there and went on. So kind of like what we expected. Didn't expect much in terms of expansion and it stopping in this. Definitely expected for it to have that sort of penetration. But let's move on to our AAC full metal jacket and see what that one does. Alright, so this one's the AAC 40 grain full metal jacket. Let's see how it does in this test. So, let's see. So it looks like that guy didn't come out the block. It actually stayed in the block. And we can see it right here. That round actually is backwards. And again, those full metal jackets, they're going to maintain all their mass and they're going to carry through the furthest, and that's kind of what we see here. So the last one we got is the American Eagle full metal jacket. That's another 40 grain, and that would be the last one for this test. Let's see what it does. All right, here we go. So we got our last round. Again, turned around and stopped right here in our ballistics gelatin. So you can actually see though, and I've kind of heard this before, is that American Eagle is not loaded as hot as the 5.7 can be loaded. So you can actually see that we had less penetration out of that guy than we did out of the AAC. So final thoughts for looking at this guy, I would definitely say that Spear Gold Dot performed, I'd say, probably the best out of all of them. Not only did it leave a really large wound track, but it also penetrated the furthest. And then if you look up here and see right here that pretty much all of these 5.7 rounds, they start to tumble right as soon as they enter this ballistics gel, and that's kind of what they're designed to do. They are a lighter weight round, but they're moving really quickly, and they're designed to tumble more like a rifle caliber round would. So I hope that if any of you guys have a 5.7 chambered pistol or rifle, that this helps you out in deciding what sort of ammunition to use in it for personal defense. And I'll see you next time on the Armor Farm.